Hi.
Hi.
So, first of all, what got you interested in this subject? How did you start writing?
Well, when I first read about this highest, coldest battlefield on earth, Siachen, that, where no enemy bullet has taken a life for 20 years, that automatically struck me as very fascinating. As I dive deeper and deeper into it, I found that not only is this an example of a political, diplomatic, military conflict, but in many ways it symbolizes our existence on Earth also. There were layers and layers and layers that I found terribly interesting. And, once the story came to mind, I found that I was able to put these thoughts into hopefully what is a dramatically engaging play, in a dramatically engaging story with characters that are flesh and blood, that have their own drives. So, it was just a step by step process. What I found though, sometimes what happens with worlds and characters and spaces that you want to tell stories in, once you start, you kind of, as you're discovering it, you kind of like, your interest wanes a bit because you're thinking about the nuts and bolts. This place is so fascinating that, the deeper I went into it, the more time I spent with it, actually I found it more and more interesting, to the point where writing the challenge of writing this play was never about, oh, do we have something to say. It was about, okay, now how do we make all these interesting things that we have to say, how do we put them in a dramatically engaging place. And I think, after the first couple of drafts that I wrote in English, actually, we read it together, Zahan and I, and from that point on, through the translation of the play by Raghav Dutt, that has been our motive, is how do we make this a dramatically engaging piece of theater, and hopefully we're somewhere around that ballpark.
Right. Now the argument is always that there's fantasy which you haven't lived, but as a writer, when you write something that you haven't really experienced yourself,
Right.
how does that work? What kind of research goes into that?
So, I mean, like in this case, I went right up to the places that we speak about in the play, and really did a lot of reading, did a lot of interviews with a lot of stakeholders in the region. I think for me, it's always been, writing has always been a way to sort of explore the world, expand my own horizons. But I do know that when you're writing something like this, something that you don't know about, or rather you haven't lived directly, you have to approach it with great humility, with great care, and you have to put in a lot of hard work to make sure that your research is solid, to make sure that when you're writing the play, you're on sort of a solid foundation, because you have a fairly decent idea of the world, and one never stops learning, so one is always discovering things even as one moves forward. But I think it's just about keeping that open mind and sort of plowing on, and always retaining that sense of humility. I think that's important.
Okay. Zahan, what drew you to the script?
Um, Boredom. We were in lockdown. We were waiting for our film to start, and we didn't know how else to pass the time, to be honest. And we decided, both of us knew that we had an interest in theatre. So we said, why don't we just read some plays, in the time we have.
So was this before Pitaji, please?
No, this was after Pitaji, please.
Right.
This was in 21, around the when lockdown 2 hit,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it was during that time when uh, we were meeting on Zoom, and because we live close by, and then as things got relaxed, we could meet a little bit in person as well. And we were just reading a whole bunch of plays. And one of the plays that Aditya was talking about also was Siachen, that he had written in English while he was in New York. And we read it one day, I think, I remember, and I remember feeling that when we read it, I said, this is really interesting. It felt as interesting as some of the other plays we were reading, which were written by some famous, some not so famous Western writers. But here was something that, and I was personally, I was always keen to find modern playwrights. And there are an amazing amount of modern playwrights in the West, in America and England. and it feels like they have this grasp of modern stories and fresh content, things that feel like relatable, set today, new approaches stylistically.
So you mean
Um,
20th century forward or like even more recent?
yeah, even more recent. I'm talking about the last few decades, let's say,
Contemporary.
like really contemporary. I'm
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
right? Because the time and place of Anton Chekhov and these things and the classics and Bernard Shaw and stuff. I mean, the things they're talking about feel a little bit now,
Dated.
yeah, dated or not relevant to the
Or at least
lives,
the way those things are
or the
told,
way they're
right?
told.
Yeah,
Rather, it's very
yeah.
traditional. They're very incredible pieces of text, no doubt. And I think all of them. I mean, as someone who's excited about the art form, is very excited about exploring even older texts. But here was a text that was new, but not only new, was set in a world that was genuinely ours. So there was no need to try and say that, okay, we can create an adaptation and we'll set it. Okay, so this is like, I mean, the play you've also just done, I mean, it was originally set in New York, but okay, we'll do an adaptation and set it in Mumbai and make it work and change some names and, and try and find the way in which you can kind of make it believable. But here we had everything, and the only thing though I insisted on, I said, let's do a translation in Hindi. I feel like for two reasons. One is it just makes it slightly more accessible, hopefully for our audiences, and it also the
Grounds it,
genuinely
yeah.
genuinely the word of the play would be better suited to have it in Hindi, because soldiers and they come from all over the country, but
Yeah.
they do kind of speak in Hindi most of the time. So it felt like it was a good fit to do this as translation, and it really just started from there. And it was an interesting piece of writing to begin with, but as we got into it and as we started the process of translating with a fellow writer, Raghav Dutt, who also has roots in theatre and is now doing a lot of screen work, is doing dialogue writing. So the process itself of refining it, of working on a text from that ground zero almost. I mean, a ground zero in a sense that he's done the work, but how are we going to now pick this up and start to envision it? And that was the real exciting thing. That was fun in a sense of I get to meet someone who is like me, interested, eager, young, and both have passion in this for this medium. And that's how the kind of process started. And I mean, again, like 21 we started talking about it. By the end of
Yeah.
22, 23, now like December, we applied for dates. Finally, we put a gun to our own heads and said, look, we have to apply to dates, because then when we get, that'll put us, give us a deadline.
To work towards, yeah. Because we say things like, 2 साल से बात हो रही है, 3 साल से बात हो रही है. As in, like, for example, I wrote this play maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right? The first draft. But it's like life gets in the way, so many
Yeah.
commitments get in the way. So when you have, I think for me, what was important was to get somebody like Zahan, to get somebody like Raghav, and then Makarand Deshpande, sir. The idea of building the tribe, right? It is the tribe and the deadline that makes you sort of put it
compels
together.
you,
Yeah, it
yeah.
compels you to put it together, because otherwise, yeah. I mean, I can speak for Zahan myself. I can speak for both Raghav and Makarand sir as well. We're all quite busy with our film commitments as well, our web commitments, and it's very easy to say ki yaar, okay, we're busy with this, so right now we'll do this, and but it's only when you make that extra effort can you make theater. Like, I know, for example, there are so many. I mean, like, I look at my own father, and I remember him making sacrifices to be able to put up one play every 2 years, right? And that's just the reality of the theater world today, and we live with that, but then we sort of work with it as well, and then we get to tell our own stories this way, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So you said that you wrote in English first, and I'm assuming, like, I realize we are Indian, but our first language somehow becomes English also.
Right.
We speak mostly in English. What are the challenges of working on a Hindi project?
I don't see too many
To
challenges
make
in
it
the.
seem real to the audience, where you're like, this is not the language you speak every daily,
No,
every
but
day.
it is the language we speak every day as well. We find ourselves, as in my own house, I speak 4 languages.
Yes.
Yeah.
I speak Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, and English.
Yeah.
Right? So we are very comfortable with Hindi, with English. It's really.
I think the only difference is, like you said, is, I mean, from coming from Bombay, and the only difference is that we are educated in English.
Yes.
Formally educated in English. But again, like I didn't go and study theatre in the way that Aditya did, or writing in the way that Aditya did. But I spent my years here, and working alongside other theatre groups in Prithvi, watching things, doing things backstage, everything like that. And the world you encounter is not that world. So I don't know. I don't think it's such a problem. I wish I had more inherent ability to even write in the language. I've been working on it. I think I've gotten better at it. But that's why you've got people again around you who also bring their talents and bring their things, and then we work at it. And again, like you said, is that over the last at least 5-6 years, I mean, we also work in this language in film and OTT. So it's not such a it's not such a stretch.
Far
I mean,
from, yeah.
there's a skill. I mean, of course, if you want to be a poet and you want to have, and be able to
Yes.
write shairi and things like that, there's
Then
a
you
skill
require a
set.
different command over the
Yes.
language. Yeah.
Yes, so that's different.
So, what are the pitfalls of translating?
Oof. Well, to begin with, what happens with translation is if the translator is trying to do a functional job, what will happen is they will try to achieve a lot of the things you are achieving in the original English version. But of course, as such is the nature of translating to a different language, you will lose, say, 10 to 15% of the, and this is just a random number, but like what I mean is you lose a bit of the nuance, you lose certain things that are trying to be said because the language just doesn't allow it. Sometimes the construction of a dialogue might not fit, and therefore you have to amend the thought also. But when you get a fantastic, and I say this, because I, as a screenwriter as well, I've often had people take, an additional dialogue pass on a script that I've written. Very rarely does it happen that you actually feel like the version has been enriched, the play has been enriched because it's been translated, And in the case of Raghav, who is a fantastic writer, he has, so of course, because of translation, you do lose a bit of nuance, but he has been able to enrich it in ways that I could not have imagined. So, I say this often, but like I don't think the play would have been what it is if it wasn't for Zahan, if it wasn't for Raghav. It's they through our discussions, through Raghav's translations, we actually found a lot of things that perhaps weren't as well fleshed out in the English version. Of course, you lose a few things, but that's part and parcel of the.
It's the process.
translation.
Yeah, it's the process.
Right?
It's an
Yeah.
evolutionary process, and that happens again while we rehearse. We
Exactly,
discover things
yeah.
while we rehearse. And
Just right now, yeah. I mean, one of the midpoint of the play is I had a completely different thought for it. Makarand sir came in, brought in this fresh idea that I think is better than what existed, and that's just how it works. It's a collaborative process.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be losing some and winning some things, or rather, yeah. I mean, it's
Right. So, you guys have both worked on Faraz together,
Yes.
and you have worked with Makarand sir on Pitaji Please.
Yes.
What is the advantage of working with frequent collaborators, and are there any disadvantages?
I'd say the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. The advantages being is that I consider myself extremely fortunate because in the just the kind of couple of projects that I've worked on so far, I've been lucky enough to work with and alongside people who are very talented and very passionate. So to work with Max sir again is great because again he gives his all. He is extremely passionate. He comes in and he wants every rehearsal to be like a show. He wants every rehearsal day to be, juiced and made the most out of. He wants to infuse life into everything as much as possible. He's playful and curious. So to work again and again with him is not only do I feel like I am growing, but I am also being able to being able to understand how his experience is enabling him to be consistent, be efficient. So, and you realize that when you're with frequent collaborators, you can kind of start where you left off, as against start from
fresh,
zero.
from scratch. Yeah.
So again, like the ability for us to have a conversation today is built on the fact that we've been having conversations for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about everything we believe in. We understand what we like and what we don't like and what we're trying to do here. So it makes it, I think, easier uh, in that sense of working with frequent collaborators.
Right.
The only disadvantage is that you get limited in your own kind of rhythm or your own kind of instincts. But again, I think now we've got we've got another cast member who's also from Faraz, Jatin, Sarin,
Yes,
and
I know
he's also a lovely actor and a really good friend. But we've worked with new collaborators on this play, but which we never worked with before. The guy who's doing music, Ajay. Some of the cast, Niketan and Chitransh, we've never worked with before, who are both fantastic actors also. So music and some actors and whether it's any technical other thing. So there's this mix. And fresh talent also gives you a lot of things. You know, a fresh collaboration gives you things that you may not have thought about.
Right.
So
It's good. It's nice to have that mix actually. You know,
Yeah.
to be able to be like, there is stability in some of the relationships that we had built before we stepped into the rehearsal room, and then there's a great freshness that's added by the other folks that have come in. Also, you know, they come in with their own, sometimes with their own relationships and their own dynamics, and it's just you know, it's a beautiful mix. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So as an actor, what must the relationship be with a director or with with a writer, and for the writer with the actor and the director?
So with the writer, I think the first most important thing to do is to understand or to try and make sense of what is the writer's intent. What is the writer trying to say? What story is the writer trying to tell? Then it is my job as an actor to try and serve that intention, serve that story, and to try and bring to life. And when I say bring to life, it means to enable or enact, for lack of a better word, the behavior that makes that story make sense. The director is the outside eye. The director is like the obstetrician who is, you know, guiding the birthing process, but is not really in charge of what the DNA of that child is, or you know how it's kind of what its makeup is and stuff. That's all the writer. The writer is really kind of putting that all there and saying this is what it is. The director is just making sure that everything is happening in the process smoothly and you reach the end point, which is its result. So that both require tremendous trust, but I think first and foremost it's about the understanding of what the writer is trying to do, then you're trying to bring your interpretation, and then the director is going to find balance. The director is going to watch you and hopefully give you notes that help you go in the direction you were trying to go, or maybe give you notes to try a direction that you didn't even think about.
Right.
So you feel, I guess I feel supported by the content, the written word, and I feel guided by the direction. But at the end of the day, it's on me to kind of bring it all together, and at each show and at each rehearsal is to put that energy forward and try and find it every day. Try and kind of do that. So slightly different relationships, but so essential. And it's rare that you have the writer and the director. I mean, with Maxa last time, for example, he is the writer and director.
Yes.
So that's a different thing. So he is then operating from a different place. Here there's a writer on one side, and then there's a director who's the outside eye. It's a new process, and this I've not also experienced before. So I've only done 2 plays. So it's different this time, but again it's comfortable because I trust both of these individuals deeply. So it makes it easier,
Right.
I guess.
And with you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always thought that once you enter the rehearsal room, within a week, especially if the actors are incredibly diligent and hardworking. If the actors are hardworking enough, they know the play better than the playwright, right? So once you've sort of put forth your vision, you have maybe, you know, they have this script, you've done these readings, it's been bolstered by a lot of these conversations that you've had with the director and the actors. After that, you know, the actors really begin to own those parts, they begin to own those characters. And I have found over time that you must let them, you know, that is the only way for something to blossom as it should. So as regards actors, I think there is that, and then you're doing everything to support the actors. You know, I know a lot of playwrights who are very fastidious, who about what they want in the play, and you know, in terms of even like going right down to like, okay, this sentence has to flow in this way and all of those things, which in some cases is very important. But because of my experience as a screenwriter as well, I have become less precious, and I have found that there is great benefit in being that way, because you know, sometimes an actor, if allowed freedom, an actor is able to bring in something truly special that is unique to just them, you know, because they're the only ones who can do it in the way that they do it, right? And to be able to recognize that and to be able to use that, I think is very important. As regards working with directors, you know, Makarand sir is, he's so strong with his imagery, with the idea of theatricality, with the idea of, okay, look, this, you know, what he said about being an outside eye, about having perspective, about being able to put himself in the audience's shoes and then sort of manipulate the images. I think that is something that he's incredibly good at. So, you know, just having him do his thing and then supporting him in whatever way I can is how I would look at it.
Yeah, I mean the decades of experience now that he has.
Yeah.
He's prolific, right? He does 2-3 plays a year sometimes. It's incredible, and all original
Yes.
writings, you know. So he has this ability to. He's learnt again by just presenting an idea to an audience, understanding how they've received it, then presenting another idea, then doing that. And he's done this dance for so long that his instinct is incredible.
Yeah.
And he has his own madness, he has his own flavor, he has his own ideas. But that is so invaluable for us, because we have also lots of ideas and lots of beliefs, and we know कि हमको ऐसे करना है, ऐसे नहीं करना है. But at the end of the day, we're still finding our feet. We're really only at the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's very humbling, you know, to be at this stage. But it's even more humbling that we can at least tap into some people like this, and you know, we can hopefully learn from them.
So, what is the process like? How did Makarand sir get involved? And
We caught him by the collar, and we said, आपको करना ही पड़ेगा, और कोई option ही नहीं है.
right. But so, how long does an ideal rehearsal time last for you guys?
6 to 8 weeks would be, I think, a good one, considering.
Given our resources, I would say,
Yeah,
perhaps
given-
longer if one
Oh,
could,
I mean,
but
I mean,
the
if you-
minimum,
The
I would
minimum.
say 6 weeks.
In this country, in this city, and how we do theatre, yes, 6 to 8 weeks is something that I think is achievable and good. We've been very good again, very lucky that we have a good team, good tribe we've managed to
Yeah.
put together. So we've been pulling out 6 to 8 hour rehearsals on the daily. And I mean, but it always feels like it should have been more.
Yeah.
It always
I
feels,
think
it
that
makes you
too
feel
is-
like if I had another 10 days, I could have
What I
maybe
could have done with
spent
this,
it
yeah.
exploring something totally different, brought in a new form, played with a new skill. I mean, and again, resources of time and money, you know, it's.
Is there a lot of scope for improvisation with Makarand sir, or he would?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Max sir
I
is,
think he's also about, you know, I think where he comes from is the idea of creating this world around you as an actor, right? Inhabiting the world and then interacting with it. That really roots, I feel, it really grounds all of the actors into their characters, into the worlds. So yeah, I think there's a lot of scope for that. There's a lot of so what I also enjoy doing is, you know, if they found something in the course of this exercise, I like to incorporate those things, you know, and so yeah, with him there's always fun to be had. Yeah.
So, how involved with the two of you, if at all, in the casting process, and how does that work? Do you like to just how does that work?
we pick up the phone and try and
Yeah.
talk to people who we think because again, there's no form. Theatre doesn't have a formal casting process. So it was literally both of us reaching out to people who we thought were accessible or we thought were. I think the key is actually people who we thought would commit.
Yeah.
Right.
Because theatre is not, I cannot offer you sustainability of paycheck. I can offer you hopefully a rewarding experience, and the idea that you get to spend time in a collective of people who all believe in doing the work, who all are excited about learning and growing.
Yeah.
But that's what you're really offering, you know. I mean, that's all you're really offering. So we are looking for people who are like, I think they could fit, and I think these people are theater actors. They believe also, they're passionate also. So we try and reach out. We tried to reach out like that. We tried to figure out double casting so that we could try and create sustainability. But it's proved to be quite difficult actually. So for this run of shows, I think we've kind of whittled our way down to having just our principal cast. But that being said, I think we have every intention to make this one of those plays. Hopefully, if it gets on its feet in such a way that the cast can be rotated comfortably. The script and the story should be solid. Now we've done phase 2, which is not just to sit around in a room and discuss a story, but now to get on your feet and to try and breathe life into it. So we've done that, and now based on that we have a modified and updated script. And going forward, it would be very exciting to see a whole new set of cast come in and bring this same story to life.
Or have the same cast members jump into
Or
different
swap
roles.
roles, yeah, exactly. So that's the luxury we have with theatre, where we can do those changes.
Because everyone has invested so much time. I was just thinking about it yesterday, you know, as a producer of a play, or, you know, when it comes to film, your asset is also what has been shot. When it comes to a play, yes, you have your sets, your props, your costumes, and the play, the script itself. But the actors that have put in their invaluable time and have put in their effort and have sort of begun to be those characters are also in a way an asset of the production.
Right.
You know, and
The most valuable
they're the
asset.
most valuable asset actually.
That's
you know,
why it's live performance.
Yeah.
What are you gonna come and watch,
Right,
right? You're gonna
so-
come and watch a real human being breathing, moving, living, right?
Most wonderful kind of performance.
Yeah.
So, in a play like SIACHEN, what kind of work goes into production design? And when Makarand sir did Scenic, did he have any inputs from that? Like, it is also a war play. And
Right.
So we haven't yet come to our final design. There's been a lot of ideas back and forth. Max sir had brought in a lot of ideas as the rehearsal was moving on. We started to block scenes, so he started to. That's how he visualizes the space and then infuses ideas. So we're going back and forth. We still haven't zeroed down on what is going to be our final set. So I don't know at this stage what it's going to be like. But Max sir, again, yes, he did Scenic. He put up his ideas. Max sir has his ideas. We have some ideas we've been playing with, and budget constraints are a real issue.
Always, yeah.
Because you want to make it sustainable. We're very aware of that. Like, the need is to make it sustainable as against
A
lavish.
flight of fancy.
A flight of
Yeah,
fancy.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, give me the money, I'd do anything on stage.
Totally awesome.
Yeah, but वो तो होगा नहीं. So,
Right, yeah.
so we're in the process of it. My sister Shaira is actually now a very experienced art director, production designer, as in of her own right, and she's worked with some incredibly big productions in film and some OTT stuff. So I've tried to rope her in, but she's very expensive also. So, but we're working on ideas, we're working on resources, we're hopefully trying to create a new language, at least something that feels like it's us, whether it's costume or sets or
What do you
music.
Right. What do you take inspiration from? What do you watch to take inspiration from for the production design?
I don't think it's necessarily watching one specific thing. I would say, if you're talking about one specific thing, it would be research, photographs, you know, those kind of things, to sort of, again, find your feet in that world. But when it comes to this, I think it's an accumulation of all the things you've seen and done over the years, especially when it comes to theater, because you're not really imitating the reality of that space. You're elevating it and you're taking it to a different place. So I think it's more what has been accumulated over the years, as opposed to being like, यार ये मैंने देखा मुझे ये उठा के डालना है, you know. So that's the
And in today's day and age, it's there's so much out there that's just a click away. So I mean, like every day we're coming up with new ideas to incorporate. Whether it's whether it's how do we use rope, how do we tie knots, how do we figure out what other things, what kind of props and sets can be lend themselves to dynamic behavior, what kind of texture or quality of light, or what kind of costumes, what are they going to do, what are other productions in place, how did they do interesting things, exciting things, films and music and soundtracks and art in general, just any kind of art, any kind of depiction of that, of a scene or an emotion. I mean, it's all fuel. It's all fuel.
Do you draw a lot or at all from regional theatre or regional language theatre? I mean,
I think you draw from all kinds
Yeah,
of experience.
from everything I've seen.
Especially when it comes to production design, because in production design the language is the thing itself, or whatever sort of wave it's riding on, as opposed to the spoken word. So all manner of things.
so you are co-producing this or?
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's been sort of instrumental in the process from the get go, not just when we had script discussions, but more so with the design and the aesthetic also, which is something that think certainly is one of his considerable strengths, which I personally am not yet there with, with story, character, and the point I want to make, all of those things. One can always feel like one knows what one is doing. With design and aesthetic, I think he's just incredibly good, and even if and no,
Yeah,
but not
she's
just
helping
not
also,
just Shaira. Even like like for example, if you look at our poster, it's been lit by him with lights that have been made by him. Right, lights that have been made by him on a whim during lockdown, because oh, I have these things, I'm going to repurpose this television screen as into a light, which I think is an incredible talent. So so in that sense, he has been very, very important to the play, in more than just as an actor, which is, as he's constantly reminded now and will be over the next couple of weeks, his primary function.
That is very cool. So why is the production company called 72 Degrees East?
So that is the longitude of Bombay. So it's so it's 19 north and 72 degrees east.
Right.
So that's the where from Bombay.
It's a very Bombay company.
Yeah, it is.
So this is premiering at Prithvi.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the difference between acting and putting up a play on a thrust stage as opposed to like a proscenium?
Slight differences in staging, I would say. A thrust is incredibly immersive and intimate.
Yes.
A proscenium tends to be more like a frame that you see from a slight detached point of view. Like you would watch any piece of you would look upon any piece of art in a museum or anywhere, right? It's a frame. It has depth, of course, but it's there. A thrust, you're kind of you're slightly embracing it more. I don't think the difference in our process is huge at this point. There is a little bit when we start to rehearse, like where the place we're rehearsing in right now is not a thrust, right? It's more like a very small proscenium.
Yeah.
It changes how you move. I think a thrust makes it more comfortable to just kind of incorporate blocking differently. I don't know, like it's just a physical thing, and there are certain limitations of a thrust, that in terms of how you stage things, but it has also these incredible advantages, and let's see. Like, I don't know. I mean, this play will we'll have to see. We're going to have to perform it in both venues. Like Pitaji Please, I performed in Thruss and in Prosceniums. I always found a Thruss stage
To be more fun.
more immediate. Yeah, I
I
mean,
was going to ask you.
there's always a sense of it. Even like in Delhi at the Habitat, it's not a thrust exactly, but it's still the stage is a little bit more protruded, and it kind of it crosses over the FOH a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit more connected.
So, what is the difference between playing to a Mumbai audience versus any other cities? Do you notice any difference?
I mean, I've only played one play, so I don't know how. I've watched a couple of other plays also in Jaipur and in things again.
Do you see a difference in audience?
Well, yes, there is a difference, but again, there's a difference in audiences in Bombay also, right? There's a different sense you get when you watch a play at Prithvi. There's a different sense you get when you watch a play at NCPA. It's interesting every time. Sometimes it feels disappointing only because if you feel like like the audience is being a bit cold or distant, but they have every right to be. It's on us to try and be
Warm
like,
them
yeah,
up.
to
and
warm them up.
Bring them into the fold.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So, you've spoken about how Opera House performing there was special because of Prithvi Raj Kapoor, and of course, Prithvi is in the family. And you've also said that you're not one to talk about favorites, but do you have a favorite venue to perform, and do you have a favorite venue to set up a play at?
Prithvi Theatre.
Prithvi.
Where else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something very special about the venue. So yes, please complete. I
Yes.
jumped in.
No,
So
what
I-
is it's complete Prithvi Theatre?
It's
Or
yeah,
kya
I
bolu?
mean it's also like, I mean, it's a place that's dear to me because I used to go there for workshops as a kid.
Yeah.
I've seen more plays there than I have at any other theatre.
Yeah.
I grew up like a stone's throw away from the theatre as well, and it's just such a special place that I tell him often it really should not exist in today's day and age in Bombay. A place that the real estate of which is eye-wateringly high. The family chose to set up a trust and make a theatre there when they could have done so many more. They could have done so many more things that were lucrative, but they did not. They actually chose to sort of champion the arts and the theatre, and what better venue than this? I mean, honestly, we are lucky because anyways Bombay has the problem of a lack of venues, less so now than it did maybe 10 years ago, but
Smaller theatres.
yeah, with the smaller theatres cropping, and then fantastic massive venues like NMAC, or you have different spaces opening, but Prithvi has been a mainstay for ages, and I think to be able to just step on that hallowed ground is
Yeah.
a privilege.
So, what do you think Prithvi means to Mumbai?
I think Prithvi has become iconic in so many ways. There is the iconic. There is a facet of Prithvi that is just its sheer perseverance. It's been over 40 years now that it's just been going and consistently going. There is that. So that's what it means. What it shows you is that the show must go on. It shows you that the stage doesn't go dark. The only time in its history that there was a shutdown of performances was because of the lockdown. Never before. The pandemic. It had to be a pandemic to stop that ball from rolling.
Yeah.
And even then, we try to find little ways with just keeping the energy alive in that physical venue. It also is a benchmark for a lot of artists and people in terms of they feel like they have to pass through that, like what we're saying, like as an artist, the rite of passage. It is also now a cultural kind of iconic venue, which means that people just random tourism
Yeah.
is also around it. It has nothing to do with what's playing that day, but
That's
it's the
true,
idea
yeah.
that this is the place to come and just hello, look, have a look, and it's okay,
And
it's
also
something
watching
special.
a play at Prithvi is an act in itself.
Of
as
tribute
opposed
almost.
To,
Yeah,
so
everyone comes and does darshan. It's that,
you're
it's a
not
temple.
necessarily, sometimes you're not going for the play, but you're going for the theatre. How often do you hear
Indeed,
that?
I do that very often.
You know, isn't that incredible? I
Exactly.
mean, just think about that. It actually makes the,
It's, yeah, exactly. So it's cultivated behavior in its audience, it's cultivated behavior in its artists, it's cultivated a reputation, it has cultivated also the kind of thing of the solid, like again the solidarity and the anchor, like it is one of the cultural anchors of this city,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
It is one of the places you look to, you know that there's going to be performances on, you know that
Yeah.
twice a year there's going to be some special festive events, you know that the cafe is a place to go and maybe drop in and just have that experience and then leave, you
And
know the
more than
bookshop is
just
there,
the
you know.
experience of the thing. Yeah, I mean, like you look at our stage manager, Mohit Solanki. He's not from Bombay. He said the first thing he did when he came to Bombay, he put his stuff in his flat and started going to Prithvi every day.
Yeah.
Because that's where he felt he will find his tribe, his work,
Yeah,
and that's how we found him as well. And what better example than it being a sort of place that fosters art and artists? Is
That's
that?
lovely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you had been talking about how you started doing PR for Prithvi. Sorry, I'm sort of like going deep into Prithvi, but I love that place. So you had started doing PR for Prithvi, and how important do you think PR is for Prithvi, and versus the legacy that draws the audience?
It's very important, again, just to keep this short. PR in general is important because there's so much noise, and unfortunately the reward system that's been built around it
Yeah.
is it's built around, I don't want to say, but frivolous stuff more than stuff that matters. And it's not, I'm not talking about whether it's just art and Prithvi, it's just in general, it's that genuine communication about things that matter, let's say, is not prioritized as much as quick little fixes of entertainment or eye catching or sensationalism of what any kind, or just random entertainment. You'd rather watch 20 reels over half an hour than watch a half an hour video about learning something, for example, right? It's just the
And
way
we're
it
all,
is.
in many
And
ways, guilty of that.
we're all guilty. Yeah, listen, I'm
situations,
not
right,
preaching here, like as some pious person here. No, we're all guilty of it. But this is the thing. So why is it? That's why it is essential to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is why it is an ongoing process of reminding people and finding new ways to catch their attention.
Yeah.
It's important to make people understand the genuine intent or the current scenario of things. I think people have a lot of assumptions about how, again, Prithvi functions or how theatre is made in general. Like again, like people don't understand even today. Like if we are going to talk to friends who are maybe not from from our world, it requires a lot of, like, it's a weird thing to tell them that we're busy 8 hours a day, slogging our asses off 8-9 hours a day, exhausting ourselves, but we're doing it. Why? Because we want to.
Literally the only reason.
It's just because we want to. And it's physically demanding, it's mentally demanding. Very few professions have a mix of both.
Yeah.
Very few, lots of them are very mentally taxing and you have mental stress, but physically you're sitting in an office. The stuff that's physically demanding, you could be really out there doing labor, manual work,
Yeah.
any kind of construction activity, something, even police force, for things that, so this is very demanding, but then again, you're kind of you're not being creative, right? You're not, so it's this mix of very different energies that we're doing all the time, and there's very limited resources, as commercially speaking. So it is mad, but hopefully, if you can communicate the value of these things and share why is it that we feel this is so special? Because art and poetry and any kind of culture and music, and it helps us live. It helps us cope with our own lives and our own existence. It helps us understand that we're not alone. It helps us make sense of our own condition, and it helps us feel connected to another human being.
Yes.
So we're very, very lucky and fortunate to be the ones who are able, we are fortunate to be, able to do this. So we take that with great care and great humility forward, and we want to then do our best as we can and reach as much as many people as we can. And whether it's putting on a production or whether it is sustaining a venue, which is again the same thing, is that you believe that this matters. We believe that it matters that you come on time. We believe it matters that you respect the people around you. That there is a sense of behaving as a collective. There is a sense of respecting what someone else has worked hard at and wants to share with you.
Yeah.
There is a sense of reminding yourself that this is valuable, because again, in a world which is oversaturated with digital content, I mean, we're going to be digitized, but we're sitting across from each other and having a conversation in a real space, and that's that's important to keep reminding people.
Right. Makes sense. What goes into running a successful theatre production company besides the economics?
We'll find out.
I don't know.
We'll find out. We will find out.
We will find out.
What have your learnings been?
There's not enough money.
There's not enough money. that money is made of paper and not elastic. I think that's that's a big one.
Yep.
No, but very honestly, I think it's about sort of, you learn how to refine your needs. You learn how to cut the frills. You learn how to still be very effective within your limited resources. Sometimes you find that it is actually your limitations that bring about great imagination, that bring about great novelty. So, this is a work in progress answer, because, we'll find out once this run ends. But I did have this experience once, in a similar experience when I was in New York with my first play, The Queen, which was done on a slightly different level. Here, I think, just being far more hands-on and having such a great crew and just a fantastic cast. I think it's just, one is figuring things out a step at a time. Yeah.
Were you not tempted to act in this play?
I was incredibly, very, very, very tempted to actually act in the play, but I think what happened is that, just wondering about, like, sort of the running around with the production as well as the writing, and I was also doing another play at the same time as Bees and Honey Drown, an Adhyam production. I felt like I want to be able to. I don't want to be. It would be unfair to the actors that are coming in every day, putting in their 8 hours, and you don't want to be the person who jumps in and out as per availability, because you don't want anyone else to be that person as well.
Yeah.
And then eventually what ended up happening was, we got such a fantastic cast. I honestly, like, it is my personal sort of greed to be on that stage, but I think the actors that are there on that stage are doing great justice to the play anyway.
Yeah.
So on the level of the writer, I am quite satisfied to see these fantastic actors, speaking out words that I may have written. As an actor, I feel very jealous. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, the next run we'll shake it up. We'll change some.
As we said,
We love Aditya.
Yeah.
Being
touch
one of
wood.
the-
Yeah.
For sure.
So, as people, as artists who come from like families that have a theatre background, how do you promote theatre, and how do you sort of promote it for the masses?
That's Miss Kajal.
Miss Kajal is Miss Kajal is how we promote theatre.
So
No, but I mean, like, getting people to maybe work at Prithvi, or getting people on a production who are not from the world. Do you look at doing that? Would you conduct workshops, or?
People come. If you're interested, they show up. It's unbelievable, the passion that you see. Like, you think you're the only one who's passionate. It's not true.
it's far from
It's
it.
not true.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, like, our music composer Ajay, he is just incredibly talented.
Yeah.
And this is his first play. He's done the soundtrack for Thar, the Netflix film. He's done it for a few others. I think there was a show that Kumud Mishra sir was in, that he had also done the soundtrack for, and he's just he's just here because he wants to be a part of this process. you know, and then that's how people come together. Yeah, so that's just, you know.
Do you give any notes to the music, or how do you work
That
it?
I feel is more between Makarand sir
director.
and Ajay. But you know, they're both so good, and they both have such great ideas. It's just great to watch them discuss things, and then Ajay will send you something, and it's just you're just, you know, knock your socks off because it's just so good and so perceptive. Despite, you know, what's surprising is that despite it being his first sort of theatrical production,
I think he has just a
he
great sense
just,
of
yeah,
story and
exactly.
mood and what it needs. And
So
yeah, so just yeah, very excited and looking forward to again how that was our always our fundamental approach objective was that how can we reach out and try and get different kind of talents to enrich this story and hopefully have a presentation that also feels fresh. So let's see. Hopefully, we'll live up to that ambition. But we'll find out on the 15th of June.
Yeah. Okay, final question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any recommendations for any plays that you would like someone to read or that really affected you? Or maybe plays that you've watched? Anything?
Read all of Shakespeare. Read all of
I knew that
Bernard
was coming
Shaw.
one.
Read all of the classics. Read Tom Stoppard. Read modern playwrights. Read everything you can, and find what you like.
yeah.
Interesting.
I would say that, yeah. I mean, it's just about. I think such is the nature of the theater is that you actually have a far wider range than you do on screen. You know, very rarely will you get a film that shakes things up, like, you know, like say Dogville being put on, or Dogville being told on the screen, or even something like say Everything Everywhere All at Once that sort of shook up
And
the.
also, sorry, and yeah, again, don't forget. I mean, you read also some of the classics we have. I mean,
Oh,
read
incredible! Yeah,
Tendulkar,
yeah,
read
yeah,
El Kunchwar, read
exactly.
read
Yes,
Girish
right.
Karnad. You know, these are people who, I mean, they,
Massive talent.
yeah, there's thing as in you need not be the one to have to say that I'll also do it, but I'm saying read it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
Vada Chirebandi.
Yeah, read it.
All incredible pieces of work. So I think, yeah, it's just, you know, it's such a wide range of works. To suggest something is to sort of, you know, be unfair to the rest. You
Yeah, yeah.
just take in as much as possible, and then, you know, you'll find your own zone, and then you'll keep going further down that path.
And watch as many plays as you can.
Yeah, starting from
15th
Siachen
of
on
June.
the 15th of June.
Yeah.
Of course. Alright, well, thank you guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
Thank you
much.
so
very
much. Thank you
Neha.
very
It was
much.
a
Neha.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.